Hi, it's Alex. I'm here in my cozy morning writing chair, and I thought I would try sharing something new. I've never shared this with anybody except for Joy King. She's seen it. This is the introduction for Mr. Darcy and the Girl Next Door, which is going live at the end of January, and I thought I'd just read it. So here we go. It starts in Pemberley, Derbyshire in 1804. And it does start in third person, and then it will switch to Elizabeth and Darcy's point of view, first person later on. But just for this introduction, we get kind of the aerial view. With all due respect, Mr. Darcy, what you propose could create difficulties. Mr. Edward Gardner scanned the document presented him by the gentleman once more, his quill hovering over one line in particular. He removed his spectacles and looked across the desk at its owner, a man in his early 50s with graying temples and a grave expression. A single power loom can replace as many as 100 skilled weavers and be operated by a handful of unskilled laborers. Sir, that is... Mr. Darcy sat back in his chair. It will displease the Weavers' Guild, yes, I know. But there is no help for progress, Gardner. What I want to know is the financial outlay. Well, Gardner shook his head and replaced his spectacles to look over the proposal once more. Your idea is intriguing. You have already secured the backing of other suppliers. Mr. Darcy nodded. Pemberley's flocks alone produce enough wool to meet approximately a quarter the initial demand, according to my figures, and my brother-in-law, Lord Matlock, can produce twice as much. It will be no trouble securing the wool. So you see, Gardner, I can build a woolen mill here on the river, provide steady income for 50 or 60 families and a secure future for Pemberley, or I can sit back and watch another do it. One who, I might add, might have fewer scruples than I. Mr. Gardner nodded slowly as he touched his quill over each line. It appears you're right. I see nothing wrong with your estimates, but I would like to take this to a friend in London to have him examine it for anything we may have overlooked. Mr. Darcy stood from his desk, signaling the end of the interview. Of course, Gardner. You've always advised me well in matters of business, and I expect no different on this occasion. Mr. Gardner folded the leather portfolio and held his breath. On that matter, sir, I must confess, I am giving up my position. He met the gentleman's eyes, then looked down again. I was married last year, sir. Yes, I recall. One of our local beauties. Miss Fairbanks, was it not? Lovely girl. Indeed. Gardner's face glowed with pleasure. With my marriage came certain advantages. I had been operating a small import business on the side for some years, and now I shall be able to expand and purchase my own warehouse. Mr. Darcy's stern features softened. Well, it could not happen to a more deserving man. I'm pleased for you, Gardner. But I do hope you can refer another financial advisor to me. Fitzwilliam. Just a moment, Gardner. Mr. Darcy stepped around his desk and extended a hand toward the door. Did you send for them? Gardner turned to see a young man of probably 20, equal in height to the senior Darcy, but lacking his father's commanding presence and ease. Lanky and thin, with a face that looked fresh from the schoolroom, the youth glanced at Gardner before inclining his head to his father. Yes, father. They're in the blue drawing room. Very good. Darcy looked back to Gardner, his expression growing somber. I do not believe I have ever introduced you to my son and heir, Fitzwilliam. Fitzwilliam, this is Mr. Gardner from London. The young man required no further introduction. He bowed immediately. Mr. Gardner? Sir. Gardner bowed in reply. Well, Mr. Darcy, I shall be on my way then, and sir, if I may impose upon you, there is one other matter which, I am afraid, is more pressing even than the business for which I summoned you. Darcy gave his son a nod, dismissing the young man, and closed the door. Oh, I hope I can be of service. So do I. Darcy sighed heavily. I have a ward, a young lady who has been in my care since she was little more than a babe. She is now a rather precocious 13. I did not know that, sir. Perhaps it is the young lady I saw at archery in the gardens when I arrived. She appeared to be besting her companion. I believe it was your younger son. Darcy gave a thin smile. Yes, Elizabeth Smith. She and my son George are close. I see, sir. Then his stomach lurched when he realized what the name Smith probably meant. Oh, I see. You have a problem then, do you? Darcy's features settled into a scowl. You would not be the first to assume that, but I assure you that is not the difficulty. She is not my natural daughter, though some claim to see a resemblance. And I am exceedingly fond of her, so much so that I have put off doing what must be done for far too long. However, her presence here is becoming more and more problematic. What are you asking, sir? Darcy sighed and gestured for Gardner to follow him. They walked through the long corridors, passing a dozen of Pemberley servants and as many doors on the way. Finally, they stopped before an opened pair of double doors, and Darcy paused. I doubt they will even notice us. Gardner looked into the room and saw a youth of approximately 15 or 16, lounging on a thick Persian rug and laughing as his companion, the young lady, aimed a grape at his mouth with a catapult made of a spoon and a spool of thread. "You missed, Lizzie," he crowed. "I win the bet, so it's my turn to pick." He broke off with a series of coughs. And I'm about to do the same thing, sorry. The girl, Elizabeth, shot to her feet, whooping and twirling around. "I got you that time. Don't you know how to close your mouth instead of bragging, George? Now I get to pick what we do this afternoon, and I want to play chess." "Chess?" The lad flopped back on the floor with a dramatic sigh. "On a sunny afternoon, I wanted to ride around the lake. You know I can't keep up with you on horseback. You'll get on that fast hunter of yours and scare the wits out of me. But I do love watching you squirm when I make you sit still at the chess table. A deal's a deal, and you lost, George." Mr. Darcy softly drew the drawers closed and turned to Gardner. They are inseparable, that pair. Gardner felt a squeeze in his chest. "And you cannot let the situation become a permanent one, is that the trouble?" Darcy tilted his head with raised brows and beckoned Gardner back to his study. Once inside, he drew out a thick portfolio from his desk. "You have guessed the situation rightly. Had she been born on the right side of the blanket, nothing would make me prouder than to accept Elizabeth as my daughter-in-law. She's clever, cheerful, a good character. She would make an able partner for even the most discerning of men. She also has a trust in her name that will see her established wherever she marries, but it cannot be in certain circles." "I'm afraid I do not understand, sir." Darcy opened the portfolio and laid it on the desk. "Her origin is known to only two people, her natural parent and myself, and it must remain that way. However, as Elizabeth matures, the family resemblance is becoming too striking to ignore. If she were seen, discovered, introduced to the wrong people, it could be ruinous for more than just her. Do you understand, Gardner?" He shook his head. "I suppose, but what am I to do on the occasion?" "You've advised me for years. I know you to be a man of unimpeachable character, and what's more, your status in society would protect her from discovery." "You want me to become her guardian?" Darcy raised his brows. "I would make it worth your while." "Well, sir, it is not a matter of the money. I can hardly offer such a young lady a good home just now. I'm always gone, and my wife, while she would adore a daughter, is a—" "Ah, I see. If Mrs. Gardner is already enceinte and cannot often count on your insistence, it is a deal to ask." "Well, just a moment." Gardner held up a finger. "How old did she say she was?" 13 in April. "I do have 4 nieces in Hertfordshire. One is 14, and too often alone, for her 3 younger sisters do not share her interests and disposition. It might prove profitable for Jane to have such a girl as Elizabeth come to live with them." "Is the situation an honorable one?" "One every way. My brother-in-law, Thomas Bennet, is a gentleman. An idle one, but he is a kind man who— Egad, he would like nothing more than to sharpen the young lady's skills at chess. I think the family might suit her, sir. And if you are prepared to assist, I will add something to the dowries of Bennet's other daughters if he can provide a kind and loving home for Elizabeth. I cannot see any harm befall her, Gardner." "If Bennet does take her in, I will still view her well-being as my personal responsibility," he vowed. Darcy nodded wearily. "Good, for there is another concern." He placed a hand over his heart and heaved a low sigh. "My doctor fears that one more bad spell, such as I had last winter, could turn very grave indeed. I cannot lay this responsibility on Fitzwilliam. He does not know the truth, nor does he have the heart to do what I must, to protect them all. Pray, Gardner, will you look after her? I must have your word." Edward Gardner cast an eye over the documents Darcy had spread before him, but he never read the contents. He just swallowed and nodded. "I will look after her like a father, sir," or, he chuckled, at least a very protective uncle. All right, so there it is. This is my first Lizzie is Not a Bennet story. It's opening up all kinds of fun possibilities I've never played with before. So this one is going live at the end of January, and this is actually going to be posting, this chapter I just read is going to post on Austen Variations on January 2nd, so you've heard it before anybody else has seen it. So here we go. I'm excited for it, and I'll be seeing you guys soon with more chapters of Tempted.